Well, thank you everybody so much for coming out here to our very special Mother's Day Fireside Chat. We have a very special guest. We have Dierdre, is it Wolownick?
Wolownick. Dierdre Wolownick.
Wolownick. Oh, okay. I knew it was one or the other.
Yeah.
But very, very happy to have you here today. As everyone may or may not know, Dierdre is Alex Honnold's mother, but even more so, she is a accomplished marathoner, musician, teacher, and rock climber in her own right. So thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So first, to get things going here, I'm very curious about how everything came to be with your summit of El Cap. What was take me through the process that led to you making that decision and the mindset of just going through that?
Well, the decision was a long time in the making. It wasn't sudden. You know, I've been a climber for about 10 years. And only for the last 2 years did I even think that maybe someday I might be able to do that kind of big wall. It was, you know, I'd seen climbers on the wall. I'd seen those little spots going up the wall for many, many years. And I always wondered, what must it be like? You know, what would it, can you guys see me? I'm not sure if.
Yeah, okay. Everyone should be able to see you. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I always wondered, what do you see from up there? What does it feel like to be up there? But I never imagined in my wildest dreams that I'd ever be up there. You know? So when I got to that point where let me back up for a second. Every year for my birthday, Alex takes me up something really extraordinary. You know, for me, my birthday's in September, and so he's always in the Yosemite area then. And so he takes me up something spectacular. You can, I just realized all those pictures. You see those pictures behind me?
Oh yeah.
Those are all the peaks that I've done with my son.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. And so, you know, every year when he'd come through the house, repacking or restocking or going to an airport or something, I would ask him, yeah, you think I could do such and so a climb? You know, I'd go online during the year, do my research, see what was out there that's moderate enough for me, because I'm not any great shakes of a climber. I started when I was in my 60s, almost 60s. And so, you know, I was 58 when I started. So I'll never be a really good climber. And I know this, I've got my limitations, I acknowledge them, but there's so much moderate stuff out there. Like just in this region alone, you know, I'm in the Sacramento area. Mm-hmm. I got Yosemite kind of in my backyard. I got Lover's Leap, I got Donner, all kinds of places. So every year I'd ask him, you think I could do such and so? And he'd say the same thing every year. Yeah, sure. You know, it took me a few years to figure out what that meant. You know, he was telling me that, you know, if I'm willing to put in the work and learn what I need to do and all that, sure, let's go do it. So that one here, mm-hmm. That's Royal Arches. And we did that in 17, I believe, and 2017. And when we were coming down off Royal Arches is a big wall, you know, technically a big wall, something more or less vertical, and takes many climbers more than a day. Okay, definition of a big wall, sort of.
Yeah.
And so on the way down, we did the whole, when you go with Alex, you go really fast.
Yeah, yeah.
He holds the speed records on everything. So I knew we would be going fast. So we went up Royal Arches, you know, in a very comfortable day. We didn't start till like 9 in the morning. Oh, wow. And we were down by dinner time. It's like 16 pitches.
Wow.
And we rappelled down the front. You can walk off the back. It's much longer and more complicated. So we rappelled down the front. And all the way down, I was thinking to myself, huh, I just did a big wall. And it's not even supper time. I wonder if I someday maybe could do that other big wall just down the road.
Yeah.
And so that year when he came to the house again, I asked him, and I don't think I really expected him to say yes. I'm going to take your 60-something-year-old mother up the wall, you know, a 3,000-foot wall. But his answer was the same. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But he added a caveat this time. He said, you have to learn how to jug. And so I did.
Cool. Nice. And so if World Arches, you were up there up and down in about a day.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do El Cap? Did you have to spend a couple nights up on the wall?
No, the route that we did called Lurking Fear, and we did it on Halloween. Wasn't that cool?
Oh,
Lurking Fear.
nice. Yeah, very fitting.
The route that we did, most climbers take 3 to 4 days to do it. We went up and down in a day.
Wow.
I didn't realize how grueling that was going to be. I mean, I had no clue what it was like to do a big wall, really. But yeah, we went up and down in 19 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, very impressive. Oh, man.
Pretty fast, pretty fast.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure you felt probably tired, like it was like a 3-day excursion by the end of that, huh?
Tired doesn't begin to say it.
Yeah.
I was absolutely exhausted. I was way beyond exhausted.
Wow, that's incredible. I know that's for most climbers that go to the valley, right, do 1 or 2 pitches out there and they feel like, they're wrecked for the day. But
Right. Yeah. Well, that's usually me too. But when I go to Alex, we just go.
Yeah. I've heard he has that effect on some people. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think he probably got that from me. I mean, genetically, because I'm kind of go kind of person too.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of energy too. And yeah, so he took it to the next level though.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, that's great. So kind of going off of that, you said you have a lot of energy. Just from reading a little bit more about you, you have a lot of hobbies that you do. Obviously the climbing, but outside of the climbing, you're fairly accomplished musician. You're a published writer, and not just The Sharp End of Life, but on other books as well. So I guess my first question is how do you find the time for all this stuff? And what at least for the music, where did that start, and what instruments do you play?
Well, how to find the time is very simple. No television.
Yeah.
No television. I haven't had a television in this house since the kids were little. We never had one when they were growing up, and I still don't see the need,
Yeah.
Yeah, so no television. Focus. Well, you have to focus. You have to decide what you want and just go do it. Everybody has the same number of hours in the day, right?
Yeah.
You just have to focus and decide and go do it. Yeah, music's been a part of my life all my life since I was 3 or 4. At home we had a piano, an accordion, and various other things. And so piano and accordion go through my entire life. Piano has always been my my solace, my sanity. When I need stuff, I go to the piano and pound it out. I've played in various groups and ensembles all around the place. And I can play anything with a keyboard. I used to play organ for graduations, in churches and things where I used to teach, and parishes where I taught. I can play anything with a keyboard. Flute, clarinet, guitar. I never did master a real stringed instrument like violin or anything like that. But basically, you give me an instrument, give me a year, I'll learn how to play it.
Wow.
It's in there. And then here in the West Sacramento area, when the kids were little, I created, founded, and conducted the West Sacramento Community Orchestra. I conducted that for 4 years. That was something I'd always dreamed of doing. And we moved to West Sac, and there was like nothing there, nothing cultural. Everybody went to Sacramento for anything cultural. So I decided that was my opportunity, and I started that orchestra, which it's still out there.
Cool, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So when sounds like a lot of you lean towards like the classical aspect of things. Was there when you run or when you're climbing, are you ever listening to music? And if so, what do you have going?
When I run or climb, the only music is in my head. I don't use, I hate earbuds. I don't use any, thing like that. When I'm out in nature, I love to listen to nature.
Yeah.
I want to hear the birds screeching. I want to hear if anything's, creeping up from behind at me. Or popping out of a rock at me. I want to be able to hear what's going on around me. I want to hear the water, rustling down the creek. nature is filled with beautiful sounds, and I just love to listen. So no, I don't listen to anything electronic when I'm outdoors.
Really immerse yourself in the experience.
Right.
Yeah, nature definitely has its own way of kind of making a soundtrack for you, huh?
Right, it's got its own music. Yeah.
Yeah. So you currently hold the title as the oldest woman to summit
the
El
title.
Cap.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I think it's like a crown, right? It's like like a belt or something like that.
The oldest woman to climb El Cap. I never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until like 2 or 3 months after I climbed it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You know Hans Florine?
Yeah. Yeah.
He is. He's Mr. El Cap. He's climbed the dives a lot. And we were talking, and he's a friend, and we were talking, and he said, I think you're probably the oldest woman to. So he checked it out. He did the research for me, and he said, yeah.
Cool. Hey, you're like, oh, well, that's neat. There's a little extra something there.
Well, wait, but for the climbers in the group here, we have to, what's the word? Préciser, make clear that I didn't climb the rock all the way up. I Jumar'd up the rope.
Right, but you summited.
I summited. My feet were on the rocks, but my hands were on the Jumars.
So how would you, if getting a lot of people get into climbing when they're in their teens or early 20s or even younger than that. If someone came up to you and say mid 40s, something like that, so a little bit later in life than that, and they're like, hey, I really want to get into climbing, I'm terrified. What advice would you give them that they to make it I guess a little bit less scary, or just a
little less daunting?
Yeah.
Well, if you're already curious, you already want to try it, but you're a little afraid to, just go to a good reputable climbing gym, and they will help you. They really will. They're wonderful people. I've never been to a climbing gym where the people weren't really nice. So they'll show you, how to use equipment. Because my son showed me once, one time, and then he left on another expedition, and I didn't know how to. I couldn't even put the harness on the second time I went back. And so they're happy to help you do that, and they'll show you how to keep yourself safe. This is a biggie for a lot of people. A lot of people, especially older people, have never tried it. They think, I'm afraid of heights. I can't do that, But, if you're on a rope, the fear of heights goes away, because nothing can happen. You can't fall. You're on the rope. You're going to dangle. But you can't fall. So, just go to the climbing gym, explain your situation, that I've never done this before and I'd like to try it. Can you help? And they'll be very helpful.
Oh, great advice. Great advice. That's, it's the same thing. I've never met the employees and just other people that are climbing there, right? They're all very really community nice feel, right?
Yeah, right.
Cool. Sure. Just for everyone else that's here attending as well, we're once a little bit later in this, we'll have a little Q&A in 20, 30 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, you can type them on the group chat. We'll get to them a little bit later. So
jot them down. We'll get to it. Yeah.
Definitely. So moving on to just reading about your marathons. You started running marathons at age 54, and I believe it said at your daughter's urging. Is that?
Well, not exactly. I started running like 55, but I didn't. I never consciously started running. Like some people say, I want to become a runner. I just used to take the dog out for a run at night. A very large dog, a Malamute, and very long legs and full of power. And it was a period of my life when I didn't have a moment to myself. I was working one full-time job for pay, another full-time job not for pay, and then several part-time, and trying to keep my writing going, and trying to raise kids, and trying to take care of 2 houses. So I didn't have a minute to myself. So at night, before I caved in, finally, I would take the dog for a walk, a so-called walk, which turned out to be a run, and then turned out to be a faster run and a jog, and then I started leaving the dog home because she would stop all the time. And then I started trying out shorter runs. There's a really endearing story, if you will, in my book about how I got started with Alex, in fact, running real races, road races,
Mhm.
organized races. But short version here, because we don't have a lot of time, but yeah, I recommend you read the book, and you'll really smile when you get to that story about my first run. And it was a 10K,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't think I'd finish. I mean, I was just, jogging with the dog for a mile or two. And of course, Alex was still living at home back then, and his take on things has never changed. First time I came home, because I knew I could not run. I grew up in a house filled with cigar and cigarette smoke.
Oh,
And I lived there for like 25 years. This is the old country way, girls
yeah.
stay home until whatever. So anything, more strenuous than getting up from my chair, and I would huff and puff.
Yeah.
So I knew, quote unquote, knew that I could never engage in any, rigorous, sustained physical activity. But I did. So I found out about this Run to Feed the Hungry for Thanksgiving. So it sounded like a good cause. So I signed up.
Mhm.
And Alex ran it with me. And if he hadn't done that, I don't know if I would have finished. But his take on it is it's so typical. I been from running with the dog, and I'd say, "Yo, Alex, I just ran a mile, a whole mile," because I didn't think it was possible for me.
Yeah.
And he'd munch on his cookie and say, "Yeah, cool, Mom. If you can do a mile, you can do a mile and a half."
Yeah.
Okay, kind of deflating,
Yeah.
but I thought about it, and he was right. And I did a mile and a half, and I'd come back and I'd get, "Yo, Alex, I just ran 2 miles." "Oh, cool, Mom. You can do 2 miles. You can do 2.5. And so it went.
Yeah.
And so I worked up to doing that 10K, and then it was 12Ks and 8Ks. And I did them all. And,
Yeah.
and half marathons. And then I just wanted to see where my limit was, basically.
Mhm.
Because I had discovered that this limit I thought was mine was fiction. And that was a very liberating experience, because all my life I had not done a lot of things because I knew that I couldn't do that. So when I discovered that I can, in fact, run for long distances, long duration, it was like all these doors opened, all these massive doors opened to me, and I wanted to see what I could do. So I signed up for half marathons, and after I did 2 or 3 half marathons, I figured, hey, why not?
Yeah.
So I did some marathons. But the first marathon was because of Stacia, because of my daughter.
Yeah.
Because I had driven her to her first marathon, and I had never seen a marathon before. I never knew anybody who ran a marathon. It was not part of my world. And so I took her to hers, and I watched everybody coming in, running into the finish line. And it was amazing. It was amazing. They looked so, they were haggard, and they were worn down, but they looked so joyful.
Yeah.
As joyful as my daughter always looks when she comes back from a run, from the house. And I wanted to see what that was like.
Yeah.
I wanted to experience it, just like I wanted to see what those little dots going up the walls was like,
Mhm.
It's just I wanted to test my own limits.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I think that's I think everyone could use a little bit of that, right? Because you don't know your limits until you push past them, right?
I had assumed all kinds of things about myself, and none of it was true.
Fantastic. Do you think that there's like there's some overlap between the mindset of increasing your half mile by a half mile each time and working up and doing the mindset of being able to kind of overcome the mental challenges to a half marathon, and is that similar to some of the mental challenges you had climbing as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, the running really did help me as a climber. It helps you learn to dig deep and just keep going. One more quarter mile, one more block. I can go one more block. And same thing with climbing, especially on a big wall. God, I have to dig deep on that one, because I was done like 2/3 of the way up.
Yeah.
I was so done. But the only way off is up.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So, yeah, there is definitely overlap. Anything that makes you push your limits. Push your limits in any endeavor. Yeah.
Yeah. You say 2/3 of the way up, like it's a It's like not, I mean, that's like 2,000 feet on El Cap or something, right? That's pretty
Well,
substantial.
El Cap is 3,000 feet, but we started a lurking fear the climb we did.
Yeah.
You have to climb way up to get to the bottom of it. So,
Ah.
so maybe 2,200, something like that.
A lot higher than I've climbed, that's for sure.
So a lot of feet.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Why don't you talk a little, speak a little bit about your book, The Sharp End of Life, because obviously, you know, you've mentioned on this call, it's part of it's about, you know, climbing El Cap, but a large part of it too is about being a mother and a teacher and a wife.
Yeah.
And why don't you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, it's a book about life, basically. I had a really rough time for 20 years or something like that. It's for anybody who's raised children, for anybody who's raised an exceptional child, for anybody who's been in a miserably failed relationship. Anybody, yeah, yeah, I'm not sure where to start.
Yeah.
And of course, for climbers and parents of climbers.
Mm-hmm.
Parents of climbers are special types.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just for everyone that's here listening, if you do want to get the book, where would they go to pick it up?
It's called The Sharp End of Life. Does everybody out there, are most of you climbers? I'm not. The sharp end is a climbing term. The sharp end of life. The sharp end is the more dangerous end of the rope, the more, not risky, but consequential end of the rope. It's the leader's end, the first person to go up, the person who puts in the gear and all that. And I have sort of led most of my life on the sharp end, you know, a good number of decades at least on the sharp end. And now things have kind of lightened up and eased up and evened out, and gave me enough perspective to actually write the story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a quite a wild ride of a story. It starts and ends on El Cap. You'll get a good feel for what it's like up there, seen through the eyes of not exactly a non-climber, but somebody who doesn't do that, you know, all her life and is not intimately acquainted with it,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. You know, reading climbing books is kind of off-putting to people who are not climbers, because you know there's a jargon involved, and there's an experience base that you just don't have and you don't share. But my experience base was different. I was an old lady when I did it, you know. I was 66 when I did it, and I'd only been climbing for 10 years at that point, or nine years at that point. And so it's a different take on climbing. So it's not exactly a climbing story at all. You know, it's a mom's story. Yeah, it's a mother's story. So your mom will love, especially if you're a climber, you should get this book for your mother.
Yeah.
Because it's terrifying to imagine what your kids are doing up there. It really is. I was there for a long time, for many years. So this book will help with that, the calming of your imagination, if you will.
That's good. I think I certainly plan on purchasing it for my mother. She's not the biggest fan of me climbing.
Yeah, you mentioned she doesn't like you bouldering.
Yeah, she does. Not a fan of bouldering. So we're still trying to figure out you know, how to reconcile that risk versus reward.
Well, doing El Cap the way Alex did it, that's bouldering too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very large boulder. Yeah.
Yeah. So for everyone listening here, if you go to it's the Sharp End of Life, or sharpendoflife.com, and they can purchase it on the website, right? And
you can get it anywhere you get books. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at the publisher. You can get it at any bookstore. Any bookstore can order it. Any way you can get books.
Perfect. Yeah. So definitely encourage people to go and pick it up. Then obviously tomorrow is Mother's Day.
The day, yes.
Yeah.
Don't forget to call your mom.
Absolutely. So do you have any plans for tomorrow?
I'm going to start with my long run of the week.
Very good.
We're all sheltering in place. I've been running or walking, you know, every day, or almost every day. So tomorrow's my long run day. So maybe 4 or 5 miles. Not that long, but last year I had massive foot surgery.
Ooh.
And I'm still coming back from that, and I'm still retraining my foot and my knee on the other side to to understand that they don't need to keep compensating. They can get back to normal any day now. And it's a long haul. So still, because 4 or 5 miles is not that much, you know, if you've been running marathons and half marathons, it's not that much, but it is a good bit on a gimpy foot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'm going to make myself my favorite coffee and sit down and enjoy that and get back to some writing and hopefully talk with my kids.
Yeah.
And some other people.
Nice, very nice. What's your favorite thing in the past that you've done with Alex or Stasia for Mother's Day? You guys usually do any big excursions when obviously things are a little bit more normal?
All kinds of different things. We always talk, of course, wherever they are. He has even managed to do that from, you know, foreign countries, wherever he was.
Nice.
He travels quite a bit. Whenever I go up to see Stacia, if I'm there, you know, during the month of May, we make it Mother's Day and we go out. She is an outdoors person as well, and she likes to run, obviously, and to hike, and she can tell you the name of every bird we see as we hike, and every plant, and whether it's edible and what you can do with it, and so she's a real outdoors person. So we usually go hiking or running somewhere or something like that. And
nice.
That's the most pleasant thing I know to do with my kids. And with Alex, sometimes, once in a while in May, we get to go climb something really extraordinary.
Yeah.
We did Half Dome, not Half Dome, but Snake Dike on Half Dome in May, and one or two of the others in May or June. Not always the very day, but we make it so.
Yeah, nice, very nice. Wow, yeah, it sounds like your daughter's quite the naturalist out there too.
Yes.
It's awesome. I'm always kind of amazed at that just people that can just identify just from, like, you know, from trees to flowers to everything. It's kind of in awe at that. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, me too.
Quality. Yeah.
Me too.
Do you have any climbs, or, like, you know, once things kind of take a bit of a few steps towards normalcy, do you have any marathons or climbs that are kind of goals for you?
I do. I have a whole list of goals.
Yeah.
Whole list of goals for myself. It will sort of depend on how my foot behaves next year, you know.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do the New York Marathon, New York City, and I've always wanted to do the Marine Corps Marathon in DC. I don't know if I ever will, but I sure would love to.
Yeah.
There's lots of smaller runs than that I'd love to do. The Oahu Marathon, and that's the marathon. But there's all kinds of runs all over the place, and, you know, it's just fun, you know, to have a goal. And climbs, my goodness, I have lots and lots of those that I'd love to do. I'd like to go back, and I climbed in France once. And down south at the Lake Calanque, which is right on the Mediterranean. And I would love to go try out some of the moderate climbs. I'm kind of limited by, you know, my skill level. I think we do what's called a moderate climbs, you know. And I'll probably never get much beyond that. I know that, and I'm happy with that. And it gives me great joy to go do those moderate climbs, and that's fine. But I'd love to try some of the moderates in the Chamonix area, you know, around in the Alps, the French Alps. I would love to climb in the Dolomites. I've always wanted to do that. And I've climbed in Greece twice now, I think. I'd love to go back. I was supposed to go back this summer, but I don't know if we're going to be flying around this summer. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm invited to go back to Mexico too. I've climbed in Mexico twice now, and loved it. Had a great time. I'd love to go climb in China. I'd love to go climb in Japan. I lived in Japan for many years, and I'd love to go back there and try the climbing. I wasn't a climber then. Yeah. So I got a lengthy list.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, definitely. It's good. It's good though. It's good to have a lot of those goals, right? It's good. I mean, you mentioned some areas that just, are just, you know, top, like Chamonix, and I know in Mexico I've seen some like just amazing picturesque.
And by the way, my book has just come out in France, Spain, and Italy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so it's, you know, for sale all around the world in those languages. So I'm hoping that, I just found out that my publisher in France is based just a few miles outside of Chamonix.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe, when I go there, maybe we'll have a launch party or something, and I can go do some climbing there.
Yeah,
That'd be way cool.
definitely. I mean, it kind of seems like a sign to me, right? I mean, yeah. Fantastic. All right. Well, if we have just a few questions here in our chat. Do you want first one we've got here says it says first off, it says Happy Pre-Mother's Day. And it says it's almost dinner time. What is Alex's favorite food as a kid that he still likes today?
As a kid, he ate totally differently than he eats now, so it's hard to say if any of it carried over. Because we ate basically a traditionally American, European kind of style. Since I was doing the cooking and I'm European.
Yeah.
But he doesn't eat meat anymore. He's a vegetarian. So totally different. He loves Indian food, Southeast Asian food of any kind. A lot of it is vegetarian, so it meets his needs. So I'm not sure if any of it carried over really.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think we can all say our tastes have certainly changed as we've, added more years to it. So just you mentioned, that you are from Europe. Is it?
Well, no, I'm from New York City, but it was a totally European New York City.
Yeah, gotcha. Do you speak other languages fluently?
Yeah, I speak lots of languages. I grew up using lots of languages because I grew up in New York several years after World War II, and New York was totally overrun with people who had, escaped the war. So everywhere I went, I had to be civil, say hi to grandma or whatever in whatever language they spoke there. So I grew up using lots of languages. Yeah, I speak French, Spanish, Italian, and are fluent. My Japanese used to be fluent when I lived there. I'm sure it would come back. Yeah. I can get by in Polish and German, and I can get by minimally in American Sign Language.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I got about 8 languages, and I don't get to use them a lot though.
Yeah, even the non-Latin based ones too, like Japanese.
Right. And Greek. I don't forget Greek. I grew up. Our neighbors were Greek. They had little kids, and I used to go to Uncle Rudy's little Greek school with them, and so I learned a lot of that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's wonderful fun, like when you go climbing, say in Greece, or Mexico, or wherever. It's wonderful to be able to speak with everybody, to be able to talk with the locals, because you get a totally different feel for the place talking with the locals than you do with just talking with the tourists. Totally different. Yeah. And I love to know what's going on around me. So.
Yeah, I can imagine you actually get like the real lowdown from the locals on the beta and everything in the
beta,
natural
on
language.
Restaurants, where not to go, and the curiosities and things that the locals know about.
Yeah, fun. Cool. So a question here about how did you deal with the fear for Alex's well-being during his climbs? I'm sure it's a question you get often.
Oh yeah. Lots and lots of fear. Yeah. Well, it's a varying story. At the beginning, I didn't know anything about climbing. I didn't know anything about what went on out there, and I didn't know what he was doing out there, or with whom, or how, or anything. So I just blocked it out. But that was back in the period when I had those 2 full-time jobs, and I was taking care of 2 houses, and I was teaching every day, and I had a big dog, and so I didn't have any time to think about it. I had no time to worry about what my son was up to. He would leave the house, and then he would come back, and that was it. As things lightened up a little bit, and I took care of. I wound up with several properties in Pennsylvania when my father died, and I had to take care of those. And I was executor for my ex-husband's estate, long story. And so I had all this legal stuff going on. So I really didn't have any time. But things started to lighten up. I sold the houses. I got back down to only 2 jobs. And so I started wondering, he'd go and then come back from these expeditions, like with the North Face, and he'd go, oh, we did this, and we did that, we went here, and we used this, and we did that. And I had no clue what he was talking about. And I'm a language person. I don't like not knowing what's going on around me. And so I would ask him questions, but then he would go away for another 6 months, and I would forget all the stuff he talked about. He told me all these things over and over, but free climbing, free solo, it sounds kind of the same.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
And I know now, but back then it was a foreign language that I didn't speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally I had him take me to the gym, and so that I could at least see what they do, how they get in the harness, how they manage the ropes, all that stuff. And so that helped. Doing it myself helped a little bit in terms of imagining what they did out there, Mm-hmm. But the free solo stuff, my mind did not let me absorb that for years. And he would tell me what he did, and then I'd see it in a magazine. I mean, he's been free soloing all his life, basically.
Yeah.
And some of the earlier ones, like in 2007, 2008, he free soloed, Moonlight Buttress and Astroman and all that stuff. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know these were just words. I didn't know where these things were. I didn't know what free soloing was. And then I started seeing it in magazines, and it was like, oh, he did what? And then I really started imagining, and as it turns out, though, this is why I always suggest that you try it yourself, because my imagination, my imaginings were totally different from what actually goes on out there. And if I hadn't done it myself, I wouldn't know that. And my imagination would still be running wild. And that's what creates the fear. Mm-hmm. Imagination is rampant. I mean, it creates all this fear that's unnecessary if you actually know what's going on. And so, that's kind of how I started getting into climbing, but then I discovered that I love it too. And I liked it. I had liked it as a little girl too, but I wasn't supposed to do that. I was supposed to wear dresses and behave myself. So it was in me, from there. It's probably where he got the gene. He took it to a completely new level. But I love it too. And then that add to that whole experience the fact that he never told me beforehand he was going to go free solo or anything. And I've always appreciated that. I never knew he was going to free solo anything. And sometimes I didn't even know after, like months later when it was in a magazine or something, because he wasn't around. He wasn't around to chat with. So it was a long road to actually accepting what he does. And by that time, I had climbed with him many times, and I knew how safe he is and how very, very cautious he is. I mean, that doesn't come across. People look at the wall, they say, oh my God, what a reckless thing to do. No, he doesn't do these things until he's 100% certain that he can do it. And that's totally different, from what people imagine. Again, there's that imagination, they figure you just walk up to a wall and climb up it, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. That's not true at all. He's very cautious, and he knows how to be very careful. And when we climb together, he's take very good care of me and of us, So I've had years and years to get accustomed to it, and the more accustomed I got to climbing and climbing with him and climbing with others, the easier it became to accept it. Yeah. And it's what he loves. He's always loved it. He will always love it. You can't ask him to stop. That's him.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Hopefully whoever asked the question, they they take the time to get out there and learn. Because I certainly agree with you there that if you haven't done it before, you don't understand all the safety aspects of it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so this next one is starts off first. Thank you. It says, I appreciate your take on life as an adult athlete. I am a 61-year-old mountain climber that began at age 49. And she says, you mentioned your healing foot, and I am curious how you mentally handle the physical recovery.
That'll be another book someday. That's a big question. Yeah. I mean, climbing and healing all take place, in the head. 99% mental emotional, whatever you want to call it. It's been really long. The operation on my foot was a year ago, January, and
Wow.
I'm still just coming back from it. And it's never going to be normal again. Never going to be, not normal, but yeah, well, it's never going to feel normal again. It's better structurally now, but it doesn't feel normal. And, that stops me from doing this or that, or bending it this way or that way. So it's been a long haul. It's been rough emotionally. It's been tedious. Oh, so tedious. Yeah. It's a long time to be one-footed. I wasn't one-footed the whole time, but almost.
Yeah.
So you have to be in control of what goes on in your head. And actually, this coming Thursday, I'm doing another podcast with a young woman up in Seattle, I believe, about journaling, because journaling is a big part of that process. Journaling is the best shrink in the world, and the best way to figure yourself out and figure out challenges like that one, about healing. So yeah, you and I should chat, whoever you are. Send me an e-message.
All right. Cool. And then just a question for me personally. If I recall correctly, Alex initially went to Cal Berkeley after high school, and then he dropped out to explore climbing and kind of see where it took him. Especially as a teacher, being a teacher, what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, well, you have to know some of the backstory.
Mm-hmm.
He was a climber, a driven climber. He's always been a driven climber. We didn't know just how driven back then. And he went to Berkeley for 1 year, hated it. As I found out later that he spent very little time in the classroom.
Yeah.
He got by. I mean, he got all A's. He could go back anytime if he wants to. Mm-hmm. But he spent most of his time at the climbing crag, and there's a very nice little climbing crag in Berkeley. So he was unhappy there. His body, his mind, his psyche wanted to be out on the wall. And then his father died that summer, the summer after his first year there. His father died suddenly, very suddenly. And I'm sure that took a great emotional toll. He was 19 at the point. And he was questioning everything. He didn't enjoy his year at Berkeley at all. Not because of Berkeley and not because of his studies. He loves engineering. He loves, making things and making things go. But it wasn't climbing. It couldn't hold a candle to climbing, So he kind of approached me and asked, "Hey, Mom, what would you think if I took a year off from Berkeley and went climbing?" And what could I say? I knew what he was like. And I knew he was miserable. And he had this traumatic experience, losing his father at 19. And I couldn't say no. Yeah, sure, get it out of your system. He kept saying, "I'll just take a year off, and then I'll go back." And I kind of knew he wasn't going to go back. It didn't matter. I mean, college, despite the fact that I've been a college teacher for most of my adult life, college or university is not for everybody. Mm-hmm. It should not be for everybody. I mean, we need plumbers. We need people to work on cars. We need funeral directors. We need all these other things that you don't have to go to a university to become, College is not for everybody. And that's a downside to our current culture, where they force it on kids. Kids need to explore. And Alex didn't really need to explore. He knew. Yeah. He knew who he was and what he loved, period, end of story. And so I gave him my van. I gave him the family van. At that point, I didn't need it anymore. It was just me at home. His sister lived in Portland by that point, and he was off climbing all the time, and Charlie had died, and I was alone with the dog. And so I gave him the family van, and he went off and made history.
Yeah, seriously. Oh, so that was his first van, huh? Was the family van?
Yeah. It was a Chevy Venture. It was really nice.
Nice. Yeah, I've been through many iterations since then. I believe, fantastic. So I think that's all the questions we have here. Just I will type the website in here again for anyone that wants to purchase the book or just learn more about Dierdre here.
And you might want to check out my my web presence, or whatever you want to call it. There's Dierdre Wolownick for Facebook and for Instagram.
Instagram, definitely. Yeah, so just check her out on there. Thank you so much for giving us so much of your time, and so apologies for the and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Don't forget to call your mom.
Oh, no, absolutely. We're gonna figure something out. So, but yeah, thanks again, and I hope you have a great night and a great day tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Call your mom.